the darkness within. Parkview was the kind of town that looked like it was pulled from a postcard. It was small, nestled between the rolling hills and dense forests of the Midwest, with neat little houses and perfectly manicured lawns. Crime was almost non-existent. Everyone knew everyone, and people left their doors unlocked without a second thought. But beneath the town's picturesque surface, something dark was festering. On a cold September morning, the body of Jennifer Tate, a 19-year-old college student, was found at the edge of Hollow Woods, just outside the town. She had been missing for a week, and her death sent shockwaves through Parkview. Jennifer had been well-liked, an honors student studying psychology at the local university, and her brutal murder shattered the town's sense of safety. The police were baffled. There were no signs of a struggle, no clues to indicate who might have done it. The investigation stalled, and the town descended into paranoia. Then the letter started coming. A week after Jennifer's body was discovered, the local police department received a letter written in neat, almost obsessive handwriting. It was short but chilling. I know what happened to Jennifer Tate. The killer is among you. Look closely and you will see this is only the beginning. The letter was unsigned, with no fingerprints or DNA. The local police chief, Harold Weston, a seasoned officer nearing retirement, was disturbed. He had never dealt with anything like this in his entire career. The letter hinted at more violence to come, and it felt like a game had begun, one in which they were already losing. The letter was made public, and the town's fear grew. People stopped going out after dark, businesses closed early, and the university held extra security briefings. Despite the increased police presence, no new leads emerged. The killer remained at large, and the town was suffocating under the weight of its own terror. Katie Dawson was one of Jennifer's closest friends. Both had been psychology majors, sharing a deep fascination with the human mind. Katie was devastated by her friend's death, but she also felt something more, an obsessive need to understand what had happened. While the police fumbled with the investigation, Katie dove into her own research. She spent hours in the university library poring over case studies of serial killers, dissecting the psychology of violence, and exploring the minds of murderers. It was her only way of coping, of bringing some sense of order to the chaos. Katie had always been analytical, able to compartmentalize her emotions and view situations from a detached, clinical perspective. But Jennifer's murder felt personal, and the more she read, the more she began to suspect that the killer wasn't an outsider. It was somebody from the town, someone close. She wasn't sure why, but she could feel it in her gut. Another letter arrived 2 weeks later, sent directly to Chief Weston's office. This one was longer, taunting the police for their inability to catch the killer. "You're looking in all the wrong places, Harold. You think you understand the human mind, but you don't. The mind is fragile, easily broken. How many more must die before you understand?" The letter suggested that the killer was not only highly intelligent, but had some understanding of psychology. Weston reached out to a forensic psychologist, Dr. Malcolm Reed, to consult on the case. Dr. Reed had worked with the FBI on several high-profile cases and specialized in criminal profiling. Dr. Reed's initial profile of the killer was unsettling, intelligent, meticulous, likely with a background in psychology or mental health, someone who enjoyed playing mind games and who craved power and control. But despite the profile, they still had no suspects. Katie read out Dr. Reed's involvement in the local news and couldn't help but be fascinated. She had considered a career in forensic psychology before Jennifer's death. Now her interest had morphed into something darker, an obsession with finding the killer. One day, while working late in the library, Katie noticed a man sitting alone in a corner, studying books that looked eerily familiar. Texts on abnormal psychology, criminal behavior, and the psychopathology of serial killers. He was older than the typical student, maybe in his 30s, with a cold, detached air about him. Curious, Kate approached him. Studying for class? The man glanced up, his eyes sharp and calculating. Something like that. His response sent a chill down her spine, but she pressed on. "I'm Katie. I'm a psychology major." "David," the man replied, giving her a faint smile. "I'm doing some research of my own." Katie felt uneasy around him, but at the same time she was drawn to him. There was something about David that seemed out of place, like he was hiding something beneath his calm exterior. As they spoke, she found herself wanting to ask more personal questions, to understand what kind of person he was. The conversation shifted to Jennifer's murder. David seemed unusually interested, asking detailed questions about the case, questions that no casual observer would ask. Katie felt her skin crawl, but couldn't shake the feeling that David might know something. He was too calm, too composed. When she left the library that night, David's image was burned into her mind. Katie became fixated on David. She began following him, watching his movements, trying to find anything that connected him to the letters or Jennifer's murder. Her behavior became increasingly erratic. She stopped attending classes, cut off her friends, and spent hours staring at her research wall in her small apartment, which had become covered in notes, pictures, and maps, all connected by pieces of string. Dr. Reed had given several interviews about the serial killer's profile, and Katie found herself poring over his words, looking for hidden meanings. Convinced that she was missing something, she began to question her own sanity, wondering if her obsession was blinding her. She hadn't heard from David in days, and it gnawed at her. She started receiving strange emails, cryptic messages with quotes about the mind, about control, about the nature of evil. She was sure it was David taunting her. The final letter arrived a month after Jennifer's murder. This time it was sent directly to Katie's apartment. She opened the envelope with trembling hands, her heart pounding as she read. "You've been very clever, Katie, but the mind can only take so much. You're closer to the truth than you realize, but you won't like what you find. Come to Hollow Woods tonight alone. All will be revealed." Katie knew it was a trap, but she couldn't resist. This was her chance to finally catch the killer. She armed herself with a flashlight and a knife, her heart racing as she headed into the woods where Jennifer's body had been found. The woods were eerily quiet, the air thick with the scent of damp leaves and earth. Katie walked deeper, her flashlight flickering in the darkness. She felt eyes on her, but no one was there. Finally, she reached the clearing where Jennifer's body had been discovered, and there, standing in the shadows, was David. "You shouldn't have come alone," David said, his voice soft but cold. Katie gripped the knife in her pocket, her mind racing. "You're the one who sent the letters." David smiled. "I didn't send the letters, Katie." Her heart stopped. "What?" "You sent the letters," he said, stepping closer. "You've been playing this game with yourself the whole time." Katie shook her head, backing away. "No, that's not possible. You're the killer. You..." David cut her off. "You don't remember, do you? You killed Jennifer, Katie. You've been trying to solve a crime you committed. The letters, the investigation, it's all been your mind unraveling piece by piece." Katie's world spun, the memories flooding back in fragments. She had confronted Jennifer that night over jealousy, over fear, over something that no longer made sense. She had blacked out, her mind splitting to protect her from the horror of what she had done. David leaned in, his eyes piercing. The mind is fragile, Katie. It breaks when it can't handle the truth. Katie dropped the knife, her body trembling, as she realized he was right. She had been the killer all along.